I should have known something was off the second I stepped into that ballroom. The room was stunning, no doubt. White roses cascading from the chandeliers, gold-accented tablecloths, crystal goblets catching the soft blush-pink lighting. It was the kind of anniversary party my parents had always dreamed of. Lavish, over-the-top, theatrical. A 40th vow renewal disguised as a small royal wedding. I adjusted the neckline of my satin burgundy dress, glanced down at the heels that were already biting into my toes, and gave myself the usual pep talk in the hallway mirror. Smile. Be gracious. You're here for them. Just breathe. But no amount of breathing could have prepared me for what happened next. I hadn't seen my daughter yet. Sophie, 21, smart as hell, more grounded than I ever was at her age. She had gone ahead with my younger brother to help set up while I worked late. I had texted her on my way to the venue. Me. Just arrived. You good?
Sophie. Yes.
Just don't cause a scene. I had laughed it off. I thought she was joking. She wasn't. The room was already full. Family members I hadn't seen in years, friends of my parents I barely remembered, and a few local officials probably here to suck up. Champagne glasses clinked as I made my way past tables, nodding politely at people I didn't care to impress. And then I saw Sophie, standing near the back, face pale, eyes locked on mine. She walked over fast, her heels clicking sharp and nervous across the marble floor. "Mom," she whispered urgently, grabbing my hand. "You need to leave." I froze. What? Her grip tightened.
Leave. Now.
Please. At first I thought she was being dramatic. Maybe someone said something rude to her. Maybe my mother had one of her classic snide comments. But the way Sophie looked at me, it wasn't annoyance. It was fear. "Sophie," I said slowly, "what's going on?" She didn't answer. She just shook her head, biting her lip, eyes glassy. That's when the announcer tapped the mic and asked for everyone's attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Mr. and Mrs. Lancaster will be making their grand entrance for their 40th anniversary vow renewal." The room applauded. Music swelled. Sophie leaned in again, whispering so low I barely caught it. "You're not supposed to be here, Mom. You were never invited." I blinked. "What are you talking about? I only found out an hour ago. I overheard Uncle Jeremy. They didn't want you here. He said Dad was supposed to keep you busy tonight." I felt the color drain from my face. But before I could process any of that, the ballroom doors swung open and my parents entered to roaring applause, dressed to the nines, hand in hand like two people who had never shattered their family into pieces. My mother's eyes met mine. She smiled, but not with warmth. It was the smile of a woman who had counted her guests. And I wasn't one of them. Now hey, before I take you deeper into this emotional wreckage, if you're watching this and can already feel the tension rising, make sure to subscribe to the channel. It helps us grow this community and keep sharing stories that expose the truths people rarely say out loud. Thank you. And now back to it. My mind raced. Why would my own parents not want me there? It didn't make sense. I mean, sure, we weren't perfect. My mother and I had been distant ever since I divorced my husband last year. She called it a selfish decision, even though the man had been emotionally absent for half the marriage. My father had stayed neutral, or at least pretended to. But this? Not inviting me to their anniversary party? As I stood there, guests brushed past me, clapping and cheering. My brother Jeremy gave a toast, talking about family unity and the power of love. I scanned the crowd. No one looked surprised to see me. They looked uncomfortable, as if my presence had punctured some carefully manufactured illusion. I turned to Sophie. "Did you know about this?" "I swear I didn't," she whispered, panicked. "I thought you knew. Uncle Jeremy told me you were part of the planning, that it was a surprise." Then I overheard him saying, "She won't come anyway. She never does." And suddenly, everything clicked. I wasn't invited. They had planned for me not to be here. But I came anyway on my own. Because my parents had assumed I'd choose work or be too bitter to show. They'd counted on my silence, my distance, my exhaustion. And when I showed up, it cracked the entire narrative. I stepped away from Sophie and moved toward the back exit of the hall. I needed air. I needed space. But as I reached for the door handle, I heard a voice behind me. Leaving so soon? It was my mother.
She had followed me.
I turned around slowly, my face neutral. She raised an eyebrow. It's rude to crash events, you know.
Crash.
That was the word she chose. I smiled tightly. Didn't realize crashing your own parents' anniversary was a thing. She sighed. You've always misunderstood things.
This wasn't about you.
No, I said. It never is. Unless something goes wrong. Then it's my fault. She said nothing. Then, soft but cold. You had your chance. You left your husband. You pulled away from this family. Now you want to be part of a celebration. I laughed. It was sharp.
Short.
Not happy. You think this is about the divorce? You stopped calling me before I left him. My mother looked at me, her mask cracking just slightly. You changed, Emily. You became loud. Unpredictable. You made choices that embarrassed this family. I looked her dead in the eye. I chose myself. That's not shameful. That's survival. And then I walked out the door, into the night, into the wind, into the cool silence of being unwanted but undeniably present. I didn't cry. Not then. Because the tears would come later, when I uncovered what Sophie knew but hadn't said yet. Because that party? It was just the beginning. What lay underneath the celebration was a secret I hadn't seen coming. And when it came out, it would blow everything. Every relationship, every facade, every fragile thread apart. The air outside was cool, almost too calm. The kind of breeze that felt like it knew something you didn't. I stood in the parking lot, phone in hand, staring at nothing. Inside that ballroom, my parents were toasting to 40 years of love, while I tried to figure out when, exactly, I'd become the family's inconvenient truth. My heels ached. My brain buzzed. My heart, still processing the word my mother used.
Crash.
As if I were some stranger who'd wandered in. A loose thread they couldn't trim fast enough. The door creaked open behind me. Sophie stepped out slowly, arms wrapped tightly around her chest. Her face was a mess of guilt and conflict. Mom, she said, I didn't want you to find out like this. I turned to her, still numb. Find out what, exactly? That my family planned an entire event without me? Or that my daughter had to warn me like I was walking into a trap? Her eyes filled instantly.
Please don't be mad.
I didn't know until today. I sighed softer this time. Then tell me. All of it. Sophie took a breath, then another. And then she told me everything. I was in the side room helping with the video montage when I overheard Uncle Jeremy and Aunt Layla talking. They were arguing about how Dad was supposed to keep you from coming. Jeremy was mad because you showing up would ruin the flow. She paused. Then I heard him say it. He said, "It doesn't matter. She was never really one of us anyway." I blinked. What? He said they only tolerated you because of Dad. But now that he's out of the picture. Out of the picture? I cut in. Sophie, your grandfather is very much alive. She looked down. And that's when it hit me.
They weren't talking about my dad.
They were talking about my ex-husband, Sophie's father. I took a step back. They cut me off because I divorced him? She nodded slowly. I don't understand, I said, voice shaking. I was miserable. Everyone knew I was miserable. And now I'm the villain because I walked away? Sophie hesitated. There's more. My stomach dropped. Go on. She looked me in the eye. They're not just mad that you left him. They're mad because he's still part of the family. I narrowed my eyes. What does that mean? She swallowed. He's still invited to things. Holidays. Dinners. Family trips. Even when you weren't. My breath caught in my throat. You're telling me they kept inviting him but not me? She nodded. And not just that. Grandpa and Grandma helped him financially during the divorce. Quietly. Behind your back. I felt the world tilt. They had taken sides. And not mine. I laughed. Short and sharp. Of course. Of course they did. Sophie looked devastated. I didn't know, Mom.
I swear.
But when I saw you walk in tonight and Grandma's face, I knew. I knew they weren't expecting you, and that you were going to walk into a room full of people who had already decided you didn't belong. I looked at her. Really looked. I'm proud of you for telling me, I said. She blinked. You are? You did something no one else had the decency to do.
You warned me.
You gave me a chance to leave with dignity. She stepped forward, hugging me tight. I love you, Mom. No matter what they say. No matter what they think. I held her, tighter than I should have. And in that moment something broke, but something else solidified. I wasn't just angry. I was done. The next day I started pulling threads. I went through old bank statements. I tracked deposit records from the divorce. And sure enough, 2 quiet transfers from my father's personal account into my ex's during the same month our separation finalized. They helped him. The man who ignored their daughter, cheated with a coworker, and blamed me for everything. They helped him. But not one of them ever offered me help. Not even a couch to cry on. I started calling around. Quietly.
Casually.
My cousin Michelle confirmed it. Yeah, your mom always said it was your fault. That you gave up too fast. That she saw him as the real victim. I sat in silence after that call. Let the words sit in my stomach like lead. Victim? I survived a loveless marriage, emotional gaslighting, and a family who smiled at me while cutting me out of photos. And he was the victim? But this wasn't about revenge. Not yet. This was about clarity. I finally understood the coldness, the silence, the subtle digs, the unspoken exclusions. They didn't abandon me accidentally.
They chose to.
And that kind of betrayal? It deserved more than just distance. It deserved truth. So I planned something. Small. Intentional. I emailed the event photographer from the party. Ordered a print of one of the group photos. One where I was clearly standing at the edge. The one where my mother had cropped me out in her Facebook post. I mailed it to her with a single post-it note attached. Thanks for reminding me where I stand. Now I know where I'll never stand again. She never replied. But Sophie? She stood taller after that day. More protective. More present. And I realized maybe this wasn't just about me. It was about showing her what self-respect looks like when no one claps for you. Because I didn't leave the party that night ashamed. I left awakened. And that awakening? It was only the beginning. Jeremy was always the golden boy. The polished one. The favorite. The fixer. The family's PR machine dressed in designer loafers. While I was the emotional one. The complicated daughter. The walking disclaimer. Growing up, he never had to beg for approval. It was handed to him on silver platters and engraved watches. He was the man of the house the moment Dad's career took off, even though I was the one cleaning Mom's tears off the kitchen floor after their fights. But if anyone knew why I'd been erased, rewritten, and boxed out of my own family's life, it was him. So I called him. Not with the intention to fight. I was past that. I wanted clarity, cold and clean. He picked up after 2 rings. Emily, he said, in that slick, careful tone of his. Didn't expect a call. Didn't expect a party I wasn't invited to. A pause. Then a soft chuckle. Is that what this is about? I ignored it. Can we meet? Why? Because I want to hear it.
From you.
Not whispers. Not Sophie's second-hand panic. From you. Another pause. Then fine.
Tomorrow.
Same cafe on Miller Street. I arrived 15 minutes early. He arrived 20 minutes late. Of course. He sat down like we were old friends catching up over croissants. You look good, he said. Still wearing rage like it's lipstick, I see. I didn't flinch. And you're still wearing guilt like it's cologne. He smirked, but didn't deny it. Cut to it, Jeremy.
Why?
He raised his eyebrows. Why what? Why exclude me? Why fund my ex during the divorce? Why pretend I don't exist at every family event while smiling in my face when it's convenient? He leaned back, sighing. You want the real answer? That would be ideal. He shrugged. Because you stopped playing your part. I blinked. My part. You were the safe one. The quiet one. The one who followed the script. But then you went and blew everything up. You divorced a man mom adored, turned down the job dad got you, and started showing up to family dinners with boundaries. I stared at him. He continued. They didn't know what to do with you anymore. You stopped asking for permission. That made you unpredictable. That made you dangerous. Dangerous?
Yeah.
Because you reminded them of everything they don't want to admit. That the family's perfect image is a lie. That being married for 40 years doesn't mean anything if your daughter can't call you without rehearsing her tone. I clenched my fists under the table. Do you even hear yourself?
He leaned in.
I do. And deep down, so do you. I stared at him, jaw tight. So that's it? They cut me out because I made them uncomfortable?
No.
They cut you out because you made them accountable. He sipped his espresso like he hadn't just detonated my insides. You could have helped me, I whispered. During the divorce. During everything. I did, he said calmly. I helped you by staying out of it. If I took your side, they would have blamed me next. I laughed bitterly. So you saved yourself. He nodded. That's what we do in this family, Emily. We save face. But at what cost? He didn't answer. Just looked at me with a strange mix of pity and respect. You always wanted the truth, he said. Well, now you have it. And suddenly I understood everything. The cold smiles. The missing invitations. The unreturned calls. They weren't accidents. They were strategy. They weren't just uncomfortable with me. They were threatened by me. Because I stopped pretending. I stood. Jeremy looked up. Where are you going? To thank you. For what? For reminding me I was never crazy. Just inconvenient. I left without finishing my drink. Outside, the air felt clearer. Sophie called that evening. How'd it go? I got answers, I said. Not apologies, but answers.
She paused.
Are you okay? No, I said, but I will be. That night, I opened a blank document, titled it, The Family I Left Behind, but Not Quietly, and I started writing. Every moment, every slight, every look I used to doubt, not to burn bridges, but to build a platform. I posted a piece the next morning, a short open letter, to the woman who was told she was too much, too loud, too emotional, too complicated. Maybe you weren't. Maybe they just preferred you quiet, compliant, and contained. And maybe the problem isn't your voice, it's their fear of hearing it. It went viral. Thousands of comments. People sharing similar stories. Estranged daughters, misunderstood sons, betrayed siblings. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. Because Jeremy was right. They had written a script. But I had found my pen. And I was rewriting every scene. The letter went live at 8:03 a.m. By 8:09, my phone was already vibrating nonstop. Facebook shares, Instagram reposts, TikTok stitches. The piece was everywhere. I had expected comments. Maybe some anonymous DMs from distant cousins or high school friends who'd say, I knew something was off. But I hadn't expected this. People were tagging me in screenshots. My mother had responded. Not privately, not in a phone call, but with a carefully written Facebook post on her profile, with her wedding photo as the header image and a caption that read, To anyone wondering about my daughter's recent statements. Sophie called first.
Mom.
Please don't read it. Too late. I had it open. There it was. Post length, 834 words.
Tone? Polished. Cold.
Carefully weaponized compassion. It began like this. Every story has two sides. And while I've always believed in staying quiet about private matters, I cannot remain silent while being publicly vilified. My eyes narrowed. Emily is my daughter. I loved her. I still do. But I will not pretend she has not made choices that have deeply hurt this family. Loved? Past tense? This is not about a party or an invitation. This is about years of tension, about boundaries being crossed, and about a family doing the best they could while being constantly criticized. Criticized? I was the one who was silenced at every turn, who was told to tone it down every time I spoke up, who was labeled too intense just for asking not to be lied to. But the worst part came at the end. I wish Emily healing. I wish her clarity. And I hope one day she finds peace without tearing others down to build herself up. I stared at the screen, heart thudding. She didn't deny what I wrote. She just reframed it, turning me into the aggressor. The angry daughter, trope wrapped in rose-filtered paragraphs and faux grace. And the comments? Split. Some people clapped for her. Others dragged her for filth. This sounds like the kind of mother who thinks respect means silence. Why not reach out to your daughter privately instead of posting publicly? Classic narcissist move. Sound calm while setting fire. I didn't respond.
Not yet.
Because I wasn't going to let her narrative bait me into an emotional reaction. Instead, I waited. I let her post settle. And then I wrote a second letter. This time, not poetic. Not wrapped in metaphors. Just honest. To the woman who raised me with silence as a weapon. You say you wish me peace. But peace isn't possible in a family where pain is rebranded as miscommunication. You say you still love me. Then why did you look me in the eye at your anniversary party and say I wasn't supposed to be there? You say I tear others down to build myself up. But I didn't write that letter to tear anyone down. I wrote it because my daughter deserved to see what standing up looks like. I didn't sign it your daughter. I signed it Emily Lancaster. Because I was done being the ghost of their story. I was writing my own now. And once that second letter went live, something unexpected happened. People started sharing their stories. My inbox became a flood of, "My mom did this too. I've been the black sheep for years. Thank you. Thank you for saying what I couldn't." One message in particular made me stop. A woman named Kayla wrote, "I'm 45. My mother died last year. We never fixed it. I kept hoping for an apology that never came. I wasted 20 years trying to be enough for people who only loved me conditionally. Reading your letter cracked something open in me. I'm starting therapy tomorrow. Thank you." That message? That's when I knew. This wasn't about my mother anymore. It wasn't even about Jeremy or my ex or the vow renewal or any of the layers that broke me. It was about truth. And how dangerous it is to families built on pretense. But the next move, that would come from someone I never expected. Late one night, I got a call. Unknown number. I hesitated, but answered. Emily. It was my father. We hadn't spoken in almost a year.
Dad.
My voice cracked. I read the letters, he said. Both of them. Silence. Then, I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you a long time ago. And just like that, the room felt like it was closing in. He continued. I didn't stop your mother. I should have. But I was scared. Scared of the fallout. Scared of losing the version of our family that looked good on the outside. I said nothing. I couldn't. I want to fix it. Or at least stop pretending it never broke. Another pause. Can we meet? My hand trembled around the phone. This wasn't a man who reached out. This was a man who had watched from the sidelines.
But now?
Now he was stepping into the fire, willing to talk, willing to admit. And I didn't know what would come next. But I knew I had to go. Because if there was anything left to save, it would have to start with truth. Face to face. We met at a park. Not a cafe. Not a restaurant. A park. It was quiet. Early. The kind of stillness that only exists before the rest of the world wakes up. The trees swayed lightly in the morning wind, and for a moment, I almost forgot I was about to walk into a conversation that could change everything. I spotted him sitting on a bench near the duck pond. Tan jacket. Pressed slacks. Coffee in hand. Like this was just another Sunday. I approached slowly, cautiously. My heels sank slightly into the dirt as I walked. He stood up when he saw me. Hi, Emily. I froze. Not because he said my name, but because he said it like it mattered. Hi, Dad. We stood in awkward silence for a few seconds before he gestured to the bench. Sit. I did. He handed me a cup. Black coffee, just how I liked it. Small gestures used to feel like big things with him. Now they just felt overdue. He cleared his throat. I know I should have said something sooner. I nodded but said nothing. I wasn't there for pleasantries. I read everything you wrote, he continued. Every word. A pause. Then, you were right. My head turned slowly. I was. He nodded. About your mother. About the family. About how we all just watched you drown and called it discipline. I stared at him. But you weren't just silent, I said. You co-signed it. All of it. He nodded again, slower this time. Because I was protecting a lie. I blinked. What lie? He exhaled, deep, long. Then he said it. Your mother didn't resent you because of your divorce. That was just the trigger. I tilted my head, heart pounding. Then why? He looked down at his hands. Because you remind her of someone. Someone she's spent her whole life trying to erase. Silence. What are you talking about? He glanced at me, guilt swimming in his eyes. Before I met your mother, he began, I was engaged. To someone else. I didn't breathe. Her name was Elise. We were young. I was in love. But she got pregnant before we were married. My family panicked. Her family panicked. And your grandmother, your mother's mother, intervened. My hands were ice. What happened? Elise was sent away. Out of state. And the engagement was broken. I was told the baby didn't survive.
He paused.
But that wasn't true. I stared at him, mouth dry. What do you mean? He looked at me. I found out years later, after marrying your mother, that Elise had the baby. A daughter. She named her Emily. My breath caught in my throat. I wasn't supposed to know, he continued. But Elise reached out once. Right after you were born. She said she had seen your birth announcement in the paper. She wanted to say congratulations. He smiled, bittersweet. And that's when I realized your mother knew. She named you Emily on purpose. Out of spite. She never admitted it. But I knew. I felt the ground tilt beneath me. So, I'm named after? He nodded. After the woman your mother hated most in the world. The woman who came before her. My hands shook. Does Sophie know? No, he said gently. No one does. Except you. And now me. And your mother. I stood up.
Paced.
So, she hated me for a name. He stood too. It was more than that. She hated that you looked like her. That you smiled like her. That you were independent like her. Every year you got older, you stopped needing her, and she saw Elise in you. I covered my mouth. All these years, I whispered. I thought I was too loud. Too blunt. Too much. But I was just a mirror she couldn't look into. My father nodded. She tried to love you, but she resented the way you never asked for permission to be yourself. I turned to him. Why are you telling me this now? His shoulders slumped. Because I watched you walk out of that party alone. And I realized if I didn't tell you the truth, you'd spend the rest of your life trying to make peace with people who only want your silence. My throat closed. I just wanted a family. You built one, he said. With Sophie. With your own strength. Your own truth. You don't need us to define you. I looked at him. I needed you, I said. For so many years. He nodded, softly. I know. I'm sorry. I believed him. Maybe for the first time in my life. We hugged. Not the tight, sobbing kind. The quiet, long overdue kind that says, I see you now. I didn't forgive him. Not fully. But I started something. And as I drove home, hands trembling on the wheel, I realized I didn't feel broken anymore. I felt rewritten. Not by them. By me. I didn't attend the next family gathering. I wasn't invited, of course, but this time, even if I had been, I wouldn't have gone. There's a strange kind of freedom that comes with knowing exactly where you're not welcome. You stop trying to fit yourself into a mold that was never made for you in the first place. You start designing your own life. That week, I stood in my home office, sunlight warming my desk, a mug of lukewarm coffee beside a candle labeled peace, not approval, and stared at the blinking cursor on my screen. For once, I wasn't writing for an audience. Not for the internet. Not for Sophie. Not for my parents. Not even for the growing following that had turned my open letters into weekly gospel. I was writing for me, and this final letter? It wasn't going online. It was going into a folder labeled Truths I Needed to Say. I began. Dear Emily, you've always been told you were too much. Too loud. Too blunt. Too dramatic. Too sensitive. You believed it. You dimmed your light for people who never planned to give you space to shine anyway. You twisted yourself into versions they could tolerate. And when you stopped doing that, they called you ungrateful. But you were never too much. They were just too small to hold the fullness of you. The words poured out of me like I'd waited a decade for permission to say them. I paused, then typed again. You walked into that anniversary party thinking it would be a celebration. But what you walked into was a funeral for the version of yourself that kept asking people to choose you. And they didn't. And you lived anyway. Tears blurred my vision. Not the weak kind, but the kind that comes from finally breaking the surface after drowning in expectation. I continued, You are not the sum of their silence. You are the storm they feared, and the peace they never earned.
Click. Saved.
I closed the document. Sophie knocked on the door moments later, holding 2 cups of coffee and a bag of bagels. She smiled. You look lighter. I nodded. I wrote my last letter. She handed me a cup. To Grandma? No, I said. To me. She looked at me for a moment. Can I read it? Not yet.
Someday.
But not today. She respected that. We ate breakfast in silence, our feet touching under the table, her presence reminding me that I hadn't lost everything. I had gained clarity, and I had kept my daughter. That afternoon, I got a letter. Handwritten. The envelope said, Emily, please read. No return address. But I recognized the handwriting. It was from my mother. I opened it slowly, unsure of what I'd find. Inside, 5 lines. I saw what you wrote. I won't argue. I won't correct. I don't know if I was fair, but I know I was scared. That was it. No apology. No explanation. Just a flicker of acknowledgement. I folded it neatly, slid it into the same folder where my letter lived, and placed it on the top shelf. Not everything needed closure. Some things just needed release. The following week, I took Sophie on a trip, just the 2 of us. Somewhere coastal, warm, quiet. No phones. No noise. One night, we sat by the ocean, toes buried in the sand, the waves clapping in rhythmic forgiveness. Mom, she said, do you think they'll ever come around? I thought for a long moment. I don't know, I said. And I think I'm finally okay with that. She smiled. You're not angry anymore. I shook my head. I'm not. Because anger keeps you orbiting people who never plan to change. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I'm proud of you. Tears welled again. Not because I was sad, but because someone had finally said it out loud. We sat like that for hours. And when we returned home, I deleted my draft folder. Turned off the comments. Archived the posts. Not because I was erasing the past, but because I was done letting it write my future. I planted a garden that spring, named each patch after a word I'd reclaimed.
Peace.
Voice. Boundary. Worth. And on one wooden sign in the center, I carved the word that used to feel like a question but now felt like a victory. Enough. Because that's what I'd always been. And now I finally believed it. Thank you for being part of Emily's journey. If this story moved you, feel free to share it with someone who needs to hear. You don't need their invitation to reclaim your voice. You just need to stop whispering around people who never listen. And if you're new here, subscribe to our channel for more real, raw, and powerful stories like this. Your support helps us keep telling the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it is. Speech balloon comment below. Have you ever been pushed out of your own family story? How did you find your way back or forward? Clapperboard until next story, stay loud, stay free.